Hi everybody, Bentley Compost Guy, Christy here. Happy New Year! It is now January of 2018. It has been quite a long time since my last update. Some of you may recall back in September, towards the end of September, I started a project all about bag vermicomposting. And the idea was that after the initial setup of the system, which involved some cardboard and whatnot, I decided that all I was going to add to the system was just tea bags. And that sort of went okay, went fine. The middle of October, I think I did some more feeding at that point. But things got kind of neglected during the fall. Oh, surprise, surprise, eh? Well, I actually had some pretty serious things to deal with in this past fall and didn't really have that much time for vermicomposting in general. So yeah, the bin got neglected once again, but the good news is that I did continue to collect tea bags. All our tea bags ended up going into a Ziploc like this. Eventually, around the Christmas holidays time, I was starting to get a little bit funky, some odors coming up from under the sink where I was sitting, so I did start up a new one. So this is the new one, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that in a minute. As you can see some of the actual little holders for the tea bags, and I'm going to tell you why those are in there in a second. But anyway, so this bin has been really badly neglected during the fall. So today I wanted to feed it, and I wanted to check on it. I've already taken a peek, but just to show you guys how things are looking in there. All right, so I'm just going to pull back this. Now, as you can see, this is quite similar to the system that these worms came from in the first place. Some of you may remember that all of this got started based on a really badly neglected worm bin that had just been left for, I think, a year or more. And so it looks like they're getting back to that state again. They basically consumed everything. This had cardboard in it initially. I'm just going to dig around a bit. Definitely worms, nice and active, and not a lot of evidence of anything to do with, oh, there's a nice collection of worms. And they certainly look a lot healthier than they did when I had neglected them for, a year or whatever it was. So they're not doing too badly. I'm not seeing any real evidence. What's that? That looks like it might be a little bit of paper from the tea bag, maybe. But other than that, there's nothing really obvious. I kind of expected to see the string or, oh, there's some strings. So that was obviously an area where a bunch of tea bags had been added. But that's pretty much it. Not seeing much else, and it's quite moist, so that's good. I had the garbage bag, as you saw, and then I also had a lid over top as well. I'm just going to kind of clear a bit of space and just add a new deposit zone. So getting back to the tea bags, something I decided, oh, you can see some staples in there. Some people had wondered about that, the little staples. Wondering if those were going to break down. So I guess they will probably kind of accumulate over time. But yeah, one thing that I kind of decided was that just the tea bags alone might not quite provide enough bedding type of material, at least not as much as I would like to see in there. So I thought it would make sense, since the particular tea that I tend to drink the most, which is a green tea, comes in these nice little paper packets. I thought, why not just include those as well? It's still technically part of the tea. It's not a tea bag, but it still comes with it. So I thought, stretch the rules a little bit and add a bunch of these to add a bit more carbon, a bit more absorbent bedding material, and see if that kind of helped things out. So I've decided today that I'm going to actually add both of these. Now, what's interesting, this is the newer bag, much newer bag. This is within the last, I think started within the last definitely within the last couple of weeks, maybe even within the last week. Like I said, we've been drinking a lot of tea. But what's interesting is there's some slightly different teas in here as well, and it's really molded up. There's lots of fungal growth in there, which I thought was kind of cool. Typically with just the green tea, or at least mostly the green tea, it seems to take a long time before it actually starts to rot and break down. But whatever this other mix of tea that I have in here, whatever it was, it's certainly it's more prone to fungal growth. So that's that. I decided to put all the carbon stuff down on the bottom because this one's probably got a bit of... One thing I should mention, it's not really important, but because it was starting to stink, I took it down in the basement first, and then I didn't want to leave it just kind of sitting there for too long. So I ended up putting it outside for a while as well. And we had some really, really frigid, cold weather for a while there. And so it just froze completely solid. I was kind of hoping to reduce any of the odors and whatnot. And speaking of odors, I can definitely get some wafts coming up. It kind of smells like a mild manure, to be honest. It's definitely not rotting food waste smell. It's not horrible. Okay, and I bet the worms are absolutely going to go crazy for this. Now that I'm kind of back in the swing of things with all of this, I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on this tea experiment. And I'm really, really interested, over the next few days, just to keep an eye on this little area here to see if it ends up full of worms. Because my suspicion is that because it's nicely aged, probably lots of good food in there for the worms, I think they're going to get right into it. All right, so what I'm going to do is just kind of move a bit of this back over there. Nothing too crazy. Put the bag back on. And then the lid. And that's pretty much it. All right, so stay tuned. I'll certainly have more updates for you, and definitely sooner than my last little stretch. And that's pretty much it. Once again, this is Bentley Compost Guy Christie, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.